What is up, you guys? I'm so excited about today's interview because one of our best clients that we've ever had has experienced a ton of success. Is going to be walking you through exactly the steps that he has taken inside of our program to see a crazy return on his advertising every single month since he's joined the program. We dive into some of those numbers. We talk a lot about analytics in this interview, and it's going to be really, really helpful for you on your journey of knowing your numbers and growing your woodworking business. So without further ado, let's hop into this bonus round. What is up, everybody? Glad that you're here. I am excited. We have another bonus round for you guys today, and I am joined by one of our incredible clients who has absolutely crushed inside of the Woodworking Business Accelerator program, Mr. Tim Johnson. So, Tim, I'm so glad that you're here, man.
Yeah, man, I'm honored to be here. Thanks for having me.
So, no Keith today, no Jordan today. They're busy running their businesses and doing all the things that it requires. And so, Tim and I are going to spend some time together, and we're just going to chat through kind of Tim's life, his business, what business looked like before the program. He's been very successful. He's put up some crazy results inside of our program, and so we're going to dive more into that. If you're watching this on YouTube, I'm even going to try to do a screen share so you can see actual numbers, and also another way that we track numbers inside of the business, inside of the Woodworking Business Accelerator program. But Tim, before we dive into all those details, give us some basics. Tell us who you are, where you're at, a little bit about your life, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah, man. Company name is Johnson Custom Furniture. We're based out of Wingate, North Carolina, which is southern eastern part of the state, maybe 40 minutes east of Charlotte. And we started back in January of 2023. So we're coming up on 2 years in business, and it's been a ride, but it's been good so far. We've seen a lot of growth, so and kudos to the program for that. So. That's
Sweet.
that's the basics.
Cool. So you single guy, you married? Give us a little family outlook here.
Yeah, so married in August of 2021, so a little over 3 years. We had our first child, Emma, in February of this year, so she's almost 10 months old. So yeah, I've got a small family.
Nice. Love it. So been growing a woodworking business as you're growing a small child at the same time. Not for
Yeah.
the fun part, but up to the challenge. Well, walk me through kind of the first year in business. You've been with us now, I think, for 6 or 7 months, maybe 8 months. And so if you don't mind, kind of walk us through how it was when you started. What were some of your biggest challenges kind of out of the gate?
Yeah, so maybe even a little bit about how we started the business. We moved into our first home in May of 2022, and kind of a DIY renovate home, needed a lot of fixing up, and I kind of started getting into some of that, and ended up building us a table, and it was terrible, but it was ours, and it was my first one. I loved it. It was a lot of fun to build that. So I kind of got hooked on dining furniture in particular, but woodworking in general, and just kept going. I actually ended up selling that one because it didn't turn out quite how we wanted it. So we're like, I'll just build another one. So we sold that, and I was shocked at how fast it sold. And I sold it for like maybe $400 or something. I was thinking maybe we can keep doing this. And I was in school at the time. I was finishing up college. So a little extra money was helpful as well. I think it was in my last semester at the time. But anyway, so I started posting, just on Facebook Marketplace that we build custom dining sets. We can do anything you want. And I was advertising more than just dining furniture, but that was really the only thing that I had to show people.
Yeah.
So that's what I was mainly putting out. And I think I was advertising like maybe, you know, starting at $500 or $600, just using Lowe's lumber. I'd never gotten into hardwoods or even furniture grade materials. But long story short, so many people were reaching out on Facebook Marketplace, and I just couldn't even keep up with that. And come to find out that it's because my prices were extremely low.
Yeah.
Um, but
Yeah.
we have to start somewhere. So I ended up building a few sets that last semester before the end of the year in 2022. And then we were talking, um, and we're just like, why don't we make this a business? Why don't we try and grow this and see where we can go with it? And learn to build a better product and really see if we can take this somewhere. So we opened an LLC in January of 2023, and all of 2023 we did just Facebook Marketplace. I was working part time at my other job and working kind of nights and weekends and a day or two here and there at woodworking in my shop. Um, but we did about 36,000 for the entire first year of 2023, just based off Facebook. So free advertising. I
Yeah.
didn't spend anything on advertising,
Right.
and so maybe like $3,000 a month, maybe a dining set and a half a month, something like that. Um, so yeah, that was 2020. That was our first year.
Okay, sweet. So you went to school, you graduated from college. What's your degree in?
I have a degree in electrical engineering, so I
Okay.
work part-time electrical engineer on the
Still do
side.
that, right?
Yes, still doing that. Still doing that.
You have a day job. This is a side hustle still at this point, which is by the way, is a great place to be. I encourage guys, if you are trying to dive into it full time, I love the idea of running it as a side hustle for a prolonged period of time because you don't have to live off of the cash from the business. You can reinvest the money into the business, and a bad month won't absolutely destroy you if it's a side hustle. If you have a bad month or a string of bad months and it's your main thing, it can be a, just a very volatile time. And uh,
Right.
so part-time electrical engineering, working on this on the side. So you did 36,000-ish in 2023. And then how did you come across the program? How did you kind of make that decision? Like, yeah, I really want to try to scale this thing. And what kind of led you to that point?
Yeah, but before I answer that, to your last note, Zach, I didn't take any money my first year for myself. I put it all back because was basically starting from nothing. So, and I wouldn't have been able to do that if I was dependent on that income.
Yeah.
So, yeah, to your point, that has accelerated our growth as a business doing that because we were able to put so much back in and kind of get our
Mhm.
feet under us. But yeah, how I came across um, you. I follow 731 Woodworks. I've kind of followed his journey, which is really cool. He's a great guy. And he does a live show, kind of like what we're doing periodically. And you were a guest on his live show. So I watched that, and that was when you were still doing woodworking business. You had yours, and you were sharing kind of, about your podcast, your business. He was interviewing you. So I was like, I'll check this guy out. You seem like a good dude in the video. So I checked it out, and I just binge watched um, all your podcast episodes. They're pretty short. Um, you have I always crack up. Keith kind of has adopted this saying too, but you always like to end a video with, "I'll keep it short," but but I think
Yeah.
that was helpful because it was just topical videos, short, easy things to remember, and I just watched them in the shop or lunch break or whatever the case was. But and then you would talk about your woodworking business accelerator program, as well as your handmade hero academy. So I started kind of researching that. I didn't realize this until later, but I was seeing you on Instagram and Facebook as
Mhm.
well, but I just kind of passed it by. I didn't really realize that was you until I started watching your videos. I was like, oh, I've already been seeing this guy. Um,
Oh, yeah.
so anyway, I think I just learned more about that. Um, and I reached out to you at some point on Instagram. I think I was actually asking for just your thoughts on a quote for a restaurant, and you took time out of your day to respond to that, which that
Yeah.
most people don't. They won't even do that. Um, so that's kind of, I guess, how I got started with learning about the program.
Nice. Nice. I love it, man. So you've been in the program now for 5 or 6 months. Walk us through kind of like your first 30 days in the program. Like I tell everybody just candidly, like it usually feels crazy. You feel like you're drinking from a water hose, or not from a water hose, from a fire hose. And water hose is pretty manageable.
Yes.
But a fire hose is not. But um, kind of walk us through that first 30 days in the program. Like what did you learn? Like what dramatically changed in your business in that first 30 days? And what were the big giant concepts that you really grew and learned in such a short amount of time?
So we joined in May, and we're actually at the beach when our first campaign started, and I started getting leads immediately. Which with Marketplace, I would kind of get like maybe one or two a week, but
Hmm.
um, since we started advertising, it's many a day. Um, but I was overwhelmed. There weren't a ton, like it wasn't necessarily volume at first that was overwhelming. It was just I realized that I don't know how to sell the product that I have. You know,
Mm,
I can talk about my product all day long, but I don't know how to, relate to people. I don't know sales tactics, any of that.
yeah.
Following up, how to do that, and just how to have a sales conversation with someone. I was lost. I just had no knowledge of those things. So, but just leaning in to you guys and Keith, he was huge. He still is, but especially at the beginning, just leaning into his knowledge and his help. He's always available. Um, I just would bounce, sales conversations off him, just send him screenshots, and um, you know, he taught me a lot, just on how to handle things. The program has resources as well, like a sales script, all those different things combined, um, and just a willingness to be taught is really what got me going in the sales part, and that got me the orders. And then it was like, oh no, I've got orders now. Now we got to fulfill them, and that was a whole nother story. Um, But yeah, the first 30 days were just overwhelming, as far as leads go, and just figuring out how to have a sales conversation with people. And
Yeah.
we did the first lead that reached out, we actually sold, which was kind of I was
Yeah.
surprised at that. It took a while, but
I think you're the only guy that's ever done that still to this day. Was the very first lead you ever got, you sold them, which is pretty cool.
right, right.
Yeah,
It took a while. I had to work with them for a while, but I mean, that's normal. That's normal.
right. Yeah. So real quick, walk us through some of the numbers. Walk us through, like you just mentioned, you did 36,000 all of 2023. Do you know offhand what you've done in the program since you've joined the program in the last, is it 6 months that you've been, or 7 months?
I think this is our eighth month, so we've been in 7 months.
Okay.
Um,
Do
if
you
I'm
know what your total sales volume is from those 7 months?
I think it's like 110,000, something like that, in that range.
So you've done 110,000 the last 7 months. Year prior did 36,000 for the whole year.
Yes.
What has been your best month in the program?
Best month, we did a little over 20,000 one month. It was like a 20x return or something. I don't think we've ever spent over a
Thousand.
thousand a month.
Yeah.
That's kind of it's been a sweet spot for us as far as our return on ads, the
Mm,
sales that we're getting. If that were to creep down to, the goal of 10x, then I might bump my ad spend up. But
yeah.
um, yeah, that was our best month so far.
So just a little note here that I'll add is that Tim has been one of the most profitable guys ever in our program. Tim has been able to get somewhere between a like 15 to 20x return almost every single month that he's been in the program. And that comes down to branding and it comes down to sales ability. That's where, Tim's not getting an astronomical uh, greater amount of leads necessarily. He's getting the same or similar amount of leads as everybody else. But what the difference is, and this is what people need to understand, is that it's just a couple conversations between, having a mediocre month and a good month or a great month is only closing another small handful of deals, two to three, four more deals, because your average deal is what, $3,000, $3,500 now, something like that.
somewhere in that range.
Yeah. So, real quick, what I'm going to do is if you're watching this on YouTube, I'm going to share my screen. I'm going to actually pull up um, what is called our marketing and sales tracker. This is a spreadsheet that we use inside of the program to monitor the success of the guys in the program and for also everybody to kind of keep up with where they're at. So he started in May, spent $500 in the month of May, and got one sale for $2,000, which is not that crazy of a return, not a great return, a 4x return, which is funny. If you go talk to anybody else in the digital marketing space that's running ads for you, they would be fired up about a 4x return. Our goal is a 10x return for all of our clients. But the thing I also tell everybody is that the first month, you're consuming a lot of information. You're marketing to a cold audience for the very first time. So they don't know anything about you. They don't know who you are. People that spend a lot of money on furniture typically are going to need to see your stuff for a little bit. There's going to need to be some track record there. And then you're also terrible at sales. Still that first month, you're trying to figure out how to improve your sales. So just from that point on, we can see that if we look at his ad spend, he did 500 his first month and 750 and 750 in the last 4 months. He's done 1,000 each month. But look at the total revenue here consistently over the last 5 to 6 months. His worst return is a 14x return over the last 6 or 7 months. And so he's consistently turned $1,000 in ad spend into 17,000 in sales, 14,000 in sales, 20,000, 19,000, 16,000, and $14,000 in sales, respectively. So he's averaging, if I had to look at the average, he's probably averaging around a 17x return for his ad spend, which is just bananas. And so I say this to just kind of pump Tim up for a second and say the reason that I believe that Tim has been able to do this has is because he really has done everything that we have asked him to do inside of the program. He has engaged with the coaching on a daily basis. We have guys that come into the program and sometimes don't. They come in and they think, well, once ads start running, it's just all going to work itself out. There's still a process that you have to learn. There's still a sales script that you have to learn and master. There's components to the program that are in your control that if you don't understand fully, you got to ask. And so with that, Tim, I would say my next question would be like, what do you feel like has been the biggest challenge with this? Because you talked about this sales, and then there's the production, and then there's the fulfillment side of things. Has that been your biggest challenge with growing the business, or has it been managing balance in your life? Walk us through some of the challenges you've had with growing the business.
I would say in a roundabout way, it's probably production. Um, at first it was sales, but
Hmm.
now it's probably production. And the reason for that um, is because I don't work I don't work full time in the shop. So to be able to keep up with that, amount of sales, I've had to hire. And so I have a few guys, but they're all part time as well. So all of us combined actually don't work, much more than like 50 hours a week. Um, so keeping up with that amount of sales, working 50 hours a week isn't, and especially we're in a 20 by 20 shop right now, which we've kind of optimized that space, but that's pretty tight. So, when furniture is finished, it moves into our living room. And that's not, you know, my wife can't wait for that, stage of our
Be
business to
over.
be over. Yeah. Um, but there are lots of things that we never knew, coming into the program, that we've been taught, like spray finishing. I would always use Rubio, um, which I still do at times if it's requested, but it's time consuming. It's not quick at all. Where spray finishing, takes 30 seconds to spray a tabletop, and then you can go work on something else while it dries. Um,
Hmm.
so just various things like that, um, grow. It's increased our profit margins, our productivity, all those things. But still, just because of where we're at from a manpower standpoint, versus what we're selling in a 20 by 20 space, that's a challenge every single week. Just
Yes.
having to be really organized and and none of my guys are very experienced in this either. So I've
Right.
had to coach them and train them as I'm learning. Like, I'm not an expert by any means. I would say I'm still a new woodworker by a lot of people's standards. Um, so I'd say that's probably been the biggest challenge after we kind of figured out how to sell.
Yeah. No, that's good. So moving forward, what are some of your goals? What are some of your hopes and dreams? I know you got part-time employees, you're still working out of the garage. Where are you trying to take this thing?
Lord willing, in 2025, we'll be able to build on our property a new shop space. We'll likely keep the one that we have. It's a detached, two-car garage. We'll probably keep that one so that we have something to work out of until we finish building the new one. Um, but after that, we'll probably tear that one down. Just for, on our property, that would work much better just to have one single building. But we hope to build fairly soon in the new year. Um, that will be a game changer. I'm really looking forward to that. Being able to have a dedicated spray booth, a showroom, as well. Um, I've seen a lot of guys in the program that have gotten that, and they've said it's a game changer to be able to show people, the stuff that you have, versus now it's still good to be able to do this, but now I have to bring people into the shop and say, well, here's something that we're working on, here's some samples, things like that, which is great. They really get to see, the quality and the craftsmanship of your product, but they want to see finished pieces too. So I'm looking forward to being able to have a showroom as well. Um, as far as revenue, I guess just since we'll have a new space, we'll be able to produce more. So I guess just increasing our revenue as well. I haven't thought, you put out a video, or maybe it was a coaching call talking about goals, and I was like, yeah, I need to write some of those down and really wrap my head around that, instead of waiting till the new year. Um, but yeah, that's kind of where we're at. The biggest thing on my mind right now is just getting a new space. That would solve a lot of problems.
Gotcha. Gotcha. So for anybody that is watching this, and is trying to grow their woodworking business, what are some of the principles that you would tell them they need to try to follow? Not even like, hey, you need to join the Woodworking Business Accelerator program, but what are some of the things that you would say have been the absolute biggest game changer from a principle standpoint of like how we do what we do that they could adhere to or they could try to help them start getting some traction and seeing some growth?
I would say, without a doubt, you need to know your numbers, be a nerd about your numbers. And part of that comes a little easier for me, maybe because I have an engineering background. So not everybody likes numbers. Um, but y as a business owner, you have to like numbers, or you need to find someone that does, that can, manage that for you. But, increasing our profit margin, knowing what it costs to build what we build, knowing how much time it takes to build it, which, again, coming into the program, I never tracked any of that. Every quote was just a guess. And part of that was because we didn't have streamlined products that we sold. So every product was pretty much every order was a custom, one-off thing that we probably wouldn't really build again. So that does make it more difficult. But now we have streamlined products that we sell, that are repeatable, and I know what it's going to take to build it. And obviously, there's unforeseen things that come up pretty much every project, that you have to account for. But just know your numbers, how much you can produce in a month, know how much you can sell, and know how
Mhm.
profitable you are. That's probably there's I could say a lot. There's a lot for me that are really helpful, but that's been the single best thing that I've done and spent time learning how to do that's helped me grow. Because if you said this the other day too, if you sell $500,000 in furniture and it takes you $500,000 to do
To build
it,
it.
why are you even in business? Like, that
Right.
sounds great. It sounds great to sell 100 or $500,000, but if you're not taking any of that home and you're not reinvesting any of it to grow your business,
Right.
it's pointless. You're just paying for your employees to work for the business. You're not actually gaining anything.
Yep. Yeah, I mentioned this to somebody yesterday. I think it might have been on the coaching call, but it's like you can go broke sitting on the couch. So if you're if you're gonna go broke, you might as well enjoy yourself, not grind it
Yeah.
out, trying to build a business, right? So that's
There's
huge.
this there's a saying, in the woodworking community, that if you want to be a millionaire, I might get this wrong. If you want to be a millionaire woodworker, then start with $1 billion.
Right.
There's a reason people say that. There's a really good reason people say that, but don't believe that fallacy. Like, if anyone's watching, like, there you need to learn how to beat that fallacy. It's very, defeatable. But it's understandable at the same time. It's kind of a joke, in the woodworking community. But
Well, to expand upon that for just a second, I'm just going to riff on that for a second. Most guys lose money because they they don't understand the principle of diminished returns. And I've talked about this a lot, but it's like they'll there's a level of like sanding on a piece of wood that once I've sanded on it to that level, it's good. Like, right? And some people will sand on it 30% longer or 40% longer or 50% longer. Well, it was good 45 minutes ago, and I just wasted 45 minutes of labor, right?
right,
And there's there's all these things that we do in the manufacturing process that slow us down dramatically. And a lot of the times it's because we're perfectionists, and there has to be this this element that we give that up and we find the perfect meeting ground of an excellent product in an efficient, timely manner. Um,
mhm,
some people are way on the other end of the spectrum where they sloppy, they get stuff done fast and gets out the door, and they have really upset customers all the time. And
right,
if once you start growing a team and you're trying to push productivity and efficiency, that will happen if you're not monitoring quality. But most guys struggle on the front end as one man crews because they take forever because they're super nitpicky, they're super
right,
perfectionistic. And it's like you could have been twice as profitable on that job if you had just gotten it done and moved on to the next thing, right?
sure,
And so, and I think that's where most guys struggle. If you're I say this a lot, but if your shop is like spotless, you're not busy enough. You're not working fast enough. You're not working hard enough. Like you need to have a little bit of sawdust in the shop. Like,
yeah. You should see the shop right now.
yeah, and I, I'm not trying to jab at anybody, but like you get on YouTube and these guys have that are doing content around woodworking have like these spotless shops. It's like, yeah, because they're content creators, not
Exactly.
real woodworking business owners,
Right,
right? And there's a difference between the two. And so now that doesn't mean we can't learn from them. That doesn't mean that we can't glean a ton of knowledge from these guys. But if you're trying to grow a product driven business, not a content business, if you're trying to grow a product driven business, you need to understand the principles that are going to allow you to do that. And so some of the things also just to when talking about your numbers, let's dive into some of those numbers real quick. Like not into the details of your how how profitable you are and all that stuff, but what are some of the biggest and most important numbers to know? Like We just looked at the marketing and sales tracker. I can pull
Mhm.
that back up if we want to. But there's some numbers on there that are important to know and important to monitor. What are some other things to understand to know from a production standpoint to make sure that you stay profitable?
Yeah. So when I look at my numbers and I'm trying to make decisions or just get an update with where we're at or how we're doing, like at the end of the pay period, um, the first thing I'll look at is just sales. If I want to sell this much based on the return on ad spend that I'm getting, how much do I need to be spending in advertising? So that's the first thing. Is just for
Mm,
me is if I want to sell this much, my data and sales tracker says I need to spend this much in ads.
yeah,
So that's the first thing to come out of my pocket. And then now I'm selling. Um, then it's I got to buy materials. How much are my materials? That's actually a good thing. I'm glad you asked that because when I first joined the program, I was spending a lot of money in materials. Um, Obviously, months and months ago, I had moved on from Lowe's Lumber, but and found a hardwood supplier. But their prices are actually, I just thought that's what hardwood prices were, and I didn't even really shop around until I joined the program. And Keith was like, one of the action items he gave me was shop around for lumber, and
mm,
I found one that's like half the cost, and I think the lumber is way better, actually. So, and they'll skip plane it for me, which is helpful because also when you're kind of you know you get lumber in the shop and you're kind of picking it out for a project, if it's already been slightly surfaced, then you can match material better. Because sometimes when it's rough, you can't tell what it looks like.
that's very
Um,
true.
yeah.
Yeah,
So knowing your material costs and not settling like I did for um, just what was closest to me. Um, so yeah, material costs is probably that's the second biggest thing that I'll look at because that's a lot. That's a lot in this business.
yeah,
A lot of other business models don't have that much cost. Like we can sell $500,000 of furniture, but by the time it actually, gets to the end product, we're way, way, way less than that.
mm,
There's just a lot of cost of business, but it's materials. And then the third one I look at is labor. Um, the advertising, materials, and labor. For me, since I don't have any overhead as far as like a commercial space,
right.
um, those are my top make it or break it things that I have to control. And just labor, it's that kind of goes back to what I was saying earlier. That's been tough to get under control, but because my new guys, training a new guy, and all that, you know, all
Slows
what
you
that
down a little bit.
entails, they're
Yeah,
not as fast as me. Even if they were a better woodworker, you've said this before, you could find someone that's a better woodworker, but you're probably going to be faster as the business owner because you're motivated. They're just there for 8 hours. You're
right.
there for until the job gets done, and
Mm,
you don't want to work 15-hour days, so you're going to get twice as much done in that same time frame. So having to pivot from I do all the work to I have people helping me now, and I was banking on the fact that it would take me this long to sand a tabletop, and it takes them maybe 45 minutes longer.
right.
So all those things, but you can't figure that out until you track people. So I would just time what it takes my guys to do something versus me, and then say, well, here's your target. Like, here's what it takes me to do it. Um, so this is possible. You can do it in this time with the same amount of quality.
Right.
Um, and then this is what it actually takes them. So accounting that in my pricing, um, so that I'm not, estimating 20% in labor on my quote, and it ends up being 35%. That's
Right.
just immediately taking from my profits. So,
Yeah.
so those are probably my biggest three that I look at.
That's great. Thanks for kind of elaborating on that. I'm going to elaborate on it a little bit more if I can. But so one thing that we teach inside of the program is to track what percentage of the total sale are you paying out in labor. So like let's say that we had $1,000 sale. Our goal inside of the program for all of our clients is that we don't want to pay out any more than 20% in labor, whether we're paying it to ourselves or we're paying it to a team member, right? So if I have $1,000 product, I don't want to have more than $200 in labor in that product. So what that means is if let's say that I'm paying $20 an hour, just to make math simple here, because I'm not great at math without a calculator, but to make math simple, I wouldn't want to have more than 10 hours of labor at $20 an hour in that $1,000 product. So the way that that also rounds out is that we want to be producing $100 in product per labor hour.
Mm,
So if I've got $4,000 in stuff I'm trying to get done, I don't want more than 40 hours of labor in that. And so we also have a spreadsheet that comes with the program where you can track how many hours you and your team works, what your hourly rates are, what your total amount of labor paid was. Then you can also add how much you got done in production, and it breaks that down for you and shows how efficient you were that pay period. And if you are, at 30 or 35 or 40%, man, we got to make improvements. And so
mhm,
just to add some value to the people watching this, what I tend to find what happens is that most everybody that comes in the program is pretty inefficient as far as labor is concerned. That's a huge challenge that a lot of guys face. And we're trying to get to 30% or less in material costs. So if I got $1,000 product, I don't want to spend more than $300 in material costs. And then I want to be at 20% or less in labor. So with that, if you can't hit your labor goals, if you're spending too much in labor, it's usually for a few reasons. Number one, you're just not charging enough. So, like, let's say that me and Tim are doing the same exact project, we're working the same exact amount of hours, but I charge 30% more than Tim did for the project. I'm making way more money per hour, right? Simply
mhm.
because I priced it higher, right? So that's the first thing. A lot of guys, they're priced too low, and that's an easy fix as long as your branding can support you charging higher prices. But that's first thing. Second thing is that you just don't have the right systems and you're not streamlining the shop. So you're bouncing all over the place. You're disorganized. That's super common, especially for newer guys, and especially in for guys that have a smaller workspace. If you have a smaller workspace, you can't really set up a flow inside of the building because there's not a big enough building to like this area is for this and this area is for that and this area is for this, and everything's just in your 1 or 2 car garage perhaps, and you got to move stuff in and move stuff out, move stuff in and move stuff out, right? So getting streamlined and also making sure that you're never have any time where you're twiddling your thumbs. So like if you're gluing up a tabletop, we want to stand that up in the clamps up against the wall and work on something else. If I'm spraying something, I want to spray it outside if you can. Right now it's the middle of winter. For a lot of people, you can't do that, but I want to spray something and then I want to find something else that I can be working on during that downtime, that 30 to 50 minutes that lacquer is drying, right? So that's super, super important. And then just the last thing, and I say this all the time, and this is what everybody overlooks, is just simply the pace at which you work. This is something that everybody downplays. They don't think this is that big of a deal, or they'll try to kind of sit on their high horse and use excellence as an excuse to work slow. It's not. There's things that you can do quickly, and there's things that you need to slow down on. So like
Yeah.
anytime that I'm getting ready to put stain on a project after I've been sanding on it, I need to slow down, make sure that I don't have a bunch of swirl marks in that wood before I put stain on it. Because once you put stain on it and you got swirl marks all in it from your sander, you got to strip all that off. It takes an additional 2 hours. It totally sucks. You eat up,
Mhm.
50 sheets of sandpaper. It's awful. So I want to slow down and make sure that that's right. As I'm about to put finish on something, I've stained it, and I'm about to spray my final finish over it, start putting coats on it. I want to make sure that it's perfect because if I have to strip lacquer off to get back down to bare wood, that totally sucks, right? So there's times that I want to go really slow and I want to double check my work, but there's also times that you can move quickly. When you're staining something, you a lot of guys they'll take the stain rag and they'll dab the end of it in the can of stain, and they'll stain the little corner, and they'll move on. It's like, dude, saturate the rag, get the
Yeah.
thing stained, and get it dried off and move on, right? So there's so many areas that you can look at and be like, you need to just constantly be asking yourself, is there a faster, more efficient way that I can be doing this? You know, and what happens is that if you do this long enough and you get enough orders to where you actually get some repetition, you'll start getting bogged down and frustrated by when stuff is super slow. And that's when you need to start asking yourself those questions. There's got to be a better way to do this. There's got to be a faster way to do this. And so a lot of times that can come down to like building out jigs. You know, one thing that we did is that we had a couple of table designs that we built on almost a weekly basis. And so we found out like, hey, let's build these jigs that make it way easier to put these table skirts into the sides of these legs, and we can fit the leg down in it, and we've got a jig built that the table skirt just sits in it, and we can zip zip and get it connected, right? So there's just so many ways to look at your efficiencies or inefficiencies inside of a shop and start figuring it out. But so so we can start wrapping this thing up. But Tim, you've done very well in the program. You have consistently gotten a great return on your advertising, which I also want to kind of give you kudos. I think a lot of that comes down to your follow-up processes and how steady you are, that you've removed emotion from the sales portion of your business. You just do what you got to do in order to get the sales, and that's follow up consistently, give quotes out, work with them on pricing, try to meet them in person, invite them to the shop. Those sorts of
Mhm.
things are huge. And but what would you say? You know, we've had a lot of guys come and go from the program that have not been successful. What do you feel like are some of the biggest differentiators between guys like you that have done well and are finding success in the program and those that don't?
From the perspective of a member of the program and not like you guys that actually are working with everybody. So correct me if I'm not accurate in some of these things, because I don't have that perspective. But um, there's a lot actually. There's a lot that I could say about that.
Go ahead.
A lot of times I'll I'll see a welcome text or an introduction text in the group by someone new, and I note the name and I never see it again. I never see That's probably the number one thing. I never see that person again. And they actually could be doing well for all I know, but most of the time people that come in and they're doing well, they'll share their wins. They're excited. They're super pumped to get sales. They're at a new place in their business. They'll share it in the wins channel that we have. And but the first thing is I'll see a new name and I'll never see it again. So people that aren't interactive with everybody. I think the most successful people in from what I've seen, and correct me if I'm wrong, Zach, but are the people that are active in the chats. They help other people. Like for me, I felt like I couldn't really help anybody when I was first in the group, and that was okay. But I couldn't wait to get to a point where I could stop asking so many questions and start answering some people's questions. Like,
Yes.
I'm sitting on my computer and responding to, sales messages, and I've got my Slack channel up too. And if I see something come up there, I'd like to be able. I see if I can help. Sometimes you know, there are other people. I'll tag somebody else that I know is like extension tables. Jordan's the master at that. So if I see someone ask a question about extension tables, that Jordan probably hates me for this, but I'll just tag him and just say, "Ask Jordan."
Yeah.
And there's different, everybody in the group, seems to bring something special that they're better at than anybody else, or they have more knowledge at. But if you don't ask the questions, and maybe they're in the coaching chat, the individual coaching chat, but I think probably not. If they're not in everybody's chat, they're probably not asking you and Keith and Jordan um, all the questions too. But ask questions, just be involved. Those are the people that are successful versus not. That's probably the biggest thing. And the second thing, um, is just teachability. I feel like some people come in, um, and if someone's watching this that's either in the program or left the program, I don't even have anybody in mind for this, so I'm not calling anybody out by any means. But some people aren't teachable, and they'll
Yeah.
come in and they're just like, they're stuck in their ways. Maybe, you know, they hear you say spray finishing and they're like, oh, hard wax oil is the industry standard now. Like, no, it's not the industry standard. If you go to any furniture manufacturer, they're not using hard wax oil. I'm not throwing shade on hard wax, so I feel like you're gonna have to put a lot of disclaimers here, but um,
No, these are your hills you're dying on right now. You don't even realize it.
that's right. Um,
Kidding.
but anyway, people come in and they're not teachable, and I feel like sometimes Keith will send. And I feel like I'm revealing a lot, but Keith will send every once in a while a message that I'm just like, yeah, he's probably got a lot of people that aren't necessarily doing what they should, and he's just sending a general text out to just remind everybody. And I get a lot because sometimes I'm not as active with you guys. Maybe things are smooth sailing, or it isn't smooth sailing, and I'm just kind of lost in the moment and not leaning on you guys, but he'll kind of send a message out every once in a while. And especially when I first joined the program, um, he sent a message out where it was basically like, it's your business. You make the decisions, but if we tell you to do it, do it. Like there's a reason we're telling you to do that. And maybe for some people that's hard to hear, but
Yeah.
for me, I was like, thumbs up, I'll do it. Whatever you say, kind of thing. So yeah, it's teachability is probably the second thing.
Yeah.
And there's a lot more. There's a lot more, but
Yeah, for sure. Just to add a little bit to that, and then we'll start wrapping this thing up. I mean, the the number one challenge that we have as, obviously I'm the founder and owner of the program, and then Keith and Jordan are coaches. And the number one challenge that I have with client success is when clients cherry pick what they want to do and what they don't want to do in the program, or what they think is going to work and what they write off as there's no way that's going to work. And it's like
mhm,
it's meant to work as a complete and total package of a system that is proven, and it's proven itself over and over and over and over and over. And that's the thing for me is it's like we all struggle with it. This is something that I struggle with too. Like, this is not
mhm,
something I'm blaming anybody or picking on anybody with. This is something I struggle with too. Is that we all feel like my business is unique. Like, I have these elements of my business that are different, or my market is different, or my product is different, or my preference is different. We all have that, but we have to, like, for anybody that is considering coming into the program, or maybe somebody that's watching this that's in the program, like if there is a proven model from A to Z, proven model to get you to $1 million a year business. Um, I want to I need to learn how to lay my preferences down and say, okay, well, if that's the proven model, then I'm willing to go from A to B and then from B to C, C to D, and not skip along the way. Or, oh, well, I'm taking this, but I'm not taking this, or I'm doing this, but I'm not doing this. And it's when guys do that that we start seeing results aren't there. They're not getting sales.
mhm,
Um, and then they're frustrated. And it's like, yeah, because there's all these other little elements that make up this whole picture, this whole piece of the puzzle for success. And when you choose to just take those pieces of the puzzle out of the equation, like I'm not even going to use them, well, then you're not going to get a full picture. You're not going to get the full
right,
picture of success, right? So it's for us, it's like, trust us and assume that we know what we're talking about. That's the other thing that I would say, is that we have guys that come in and they assume that we don't know what we're talking about.
yeah,
Like, it's like, well, first of all, if that was your assumption, you probably shouldn't have joined the program. And
yeah,
but then two, give us the benefit of the doubt that we have been where you're trying to go, and that we honestly do want you to win. We want you to succeed. And so we're not telling you this stuff to sabotage you or just make you mad, or give you a list of things that you don't like or don't want to do, or don't want to, it doesn't jive with you, right? That's another thing
yeah,
I'll say. People have all these emotional connections. Well, that doesn't sit well with me. unless we're asking you to do something unethical, like
Try it.
try
Just
it.
try it. That
You know what I'm
Luke Dodds, I'll give him a shout out for a second.
saying?
He started he when he was a coach, he had like calls that you could schedule.
Yeah.
And early on, I scheduled everyone that I could, and I would talk to him, and he was just sharing different things because there were a few things that I was hesitant to do, like spray finishing, trimming tabletops, things like that.
Mhm.
Um, I I was hesitant to do it, so I'm not at all saying that Keith told me to do it, and I just bowed down and did it. That's not. I struggled with some of the. I had to work through some of those things, and Luke was like, "Just try it, dude. Like, what's the worst that could happen? You try it and you don't like it, or it doesn't work for you." But I think in the back of his head, he knew like Tim's gonna try this, and he's gonna be, kicking himself for not doing it sooner. And it's just different things like that. That why you've come into a program to learn and get knowledge. Why not try different things? It's not going to cost you anything to try it, and it's very likely could be game changing. So
Yeah, it's good stuff. Well, last question I'll ask you, and then we will really wrap this up. This is the pastor in me shining, where I say I'm wrapping it up 3 or 4 times. You know,
I'm
um,
a pastor's kid, so I know exactly what you mean.
so what has been some of the best resources for you to grow your business outside of the Woodworking Business Accelerator program? Are there any business guys that you follow, any books that you've read, podcasts that you listen to? What has been some of the other greatest resources that you've found outside of what we do at the in the Woodworking Business Accelerator program?
So the woodworking community, it's got a lot of resources, a lot on YouTube. I'm a young guy, so reading books is I'm not really a book reader. Um,
Yep.
but different podcasts there and a lot of things that have been introduced by this program, like Alex Hormozy, um, just business principles, not necessarily woodworking related. Well,
Yep.
for him, not at all, but um, business principles that I see come up in my social media feed, YouTube every single day, and it's just something short that I can, him in particular has messages every single day, just little short things that he posts that are like, you I can apply that today. Like I can just take that and apply that today, and a lot of times it's personal. And I say all that to say, um, some of the best resources for growing the business since we joined have not been necessarily business related as much as just personally related, and getting your mind right and your mental state right, because it is pretty overwhelming to grow like this. So that for me personally, I've leaned into the group and the program and other resources for business related things, but just you know, for mental purposes and just staying strong there. You know,
Yeah.
that's been the biggest thing for me. So I don't know if that really answered your question, but
Yeah, it's so true. It's just like a lot of people assume that business is just a strategy game. That to grow a business, all you need is strategy, and you do need a strategy. You got to have a good strategy that works, that's proven, that takes where you're trying to go. But long-term success in business is not a strategy game. It's a power and will. How strong is your will to win game? How much can you endure, and how long can you do something for without seeing immediate results and continue to make incremental improvements and having the strength and the will to do it internally is that's the game. That's where most guys struggle.
yeah.
And, but well, man, Tim, as always, one thing I like to do on these is just show you huge honor on the end of this call. You've come to the program, you've done absolutely everything that we have asked you to do. You've been engaged every step of the way. You have been the pitcher of leaning into coaching, asking lots of questions, getting solutions, applying those, and seeing crazy good results. And so I just want to give you honor, give you kudos for that, that you have been incredibly teachable. You have and you've seen your success absolutely skyrocket as a result of it. So you add a lot of humor, you add a lot of fun to the program, and I'm super glad that you're a part of it. So love you, dude. Thankful for you. And
I'm
where
all right
can
back at you, man. I've enjoyed getting to know everybody, and I'm glad our paths have crossed, and even all the new guys that come in. I enjoy, me and Devin were, we have an interesting, over the
dynamic?
Slack channel friendship. So it's been fun. It's been a lot of fun.
So true. So where can people find you? How can they hit you up if they have any questions about your business or about the program?
Johnson Custom Furniture on Facebook and Instagram. Um, Also, our website, Johnson Custom Furniture LLC.com. It's currently under construction. So if you click on it, it may tell you to hold on. But um, yeah, that's pretty much it.
All right. Well, with that being said, guys, if you have questions about the Woodworking Business Accelerator program, if you want to hit up Tim and ask him about his experience, feel free to reach out on Facebook or Instagram and connect with him. Or if you have questions, you're welcome to hit me up on Instagram as well, just Zach Vaught _. But we have guys that are crushing it inside the program, and there's no reason you couldn't be the next one. So if you want to check it out, want to hop on a call with me or a member of the team, we would love to connect with you and see if we can actually help you grow your custom furniture business. So, with that being said, we'll wrap this baby up. We love you guys, and we'll see you on the next one.